right, week 8, which means this will be my last video message to you guys for our time together. First of all, thank you. It's been a real pleasure to see the level of work and professionalism in this class. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed all the posts and the work. And as always, and I think I do this in week 17, but your feedback on this course is really important to me. So I believe again in week 7, the last week of lecture, we'll do that. And I actually think in the video you're going to watch this week, I say something about telling me the topic you'd like for the last one, but I end up doing just a kind of a summary. So just know that that's true. So I have a couple of topics I want to go over today, and the first one is I think really one of those things that as you grow in this career, whether this is the only class you will take or whether you plan on continuing, is getting involved in the community is a really important thing. So I'm going to switch over to the tab that shows my first topic, which is something I've mentioned before, but the website is iwdc.wtmfresno.com. And this is basically, as when you were watching the videos, I was talking about DevFest last semester. Well, this semester, so this is kind of the way it rolls with the work that I do, is that we hold 2 big events a year, and this is our second one. And this is focused on getting more women into technology. And so, guys, and I believe I said this before, this doesn't mean you're not invited. You are absolutely welcome to come because the more people we have at the table, both finding community and leveling up on your skill, the better. So anyway, you are invited. Right now, if you want to get a ticket, you actually get a t-shirt. Well, one of the options is to actually get a t-shirt and that becomes your ticket. Okay, so I've given a link here to buy the ticket because I normally have a few giveaways, but this year I don't. Mostly because of some funding issues. And so if you scroll down here, you'll see that you can get, and it's a nice looking t-shirt. We had some professionals help us with the graphics this year, so it was really awesome. So in the next couple of days, I think this ends, the t-shirt part ends soon. And we do have a presence on Facebook, and of course this site will help you as well. Interesting note on this site, it is what's called a WPA, a progressive web app, and you may have never seen a message like this. And what this really means is I uploaded a new version last night. And if I refresh this, what happens is that, of course, I get the latest content as you normally would, but now I could actually go offline. This is closer to what we think of as native apps. So it's a kind of a fun thing to learn about, which is service workers. So you can see the schedule we have as far as the day, and it's going to be a very packed day. We're going to have Makerspace. We're going to have the Cloud Next track, which is actually Google's running next week. Campaign called Cloud Next, or an event. So we'll be grabbing some of that content to roll it here in Fresno. And then we'll have tech talks, technical talks, and then we'll have a UI UX track. So I highly encourage you to come, to be exposed to the content and to be exposed to the community. See Bitwise if you've never seen it. So think about that. The tickets right now, if you don't get the t-shirt, are I think $20. Well worth it. We give you breakfast. We give you a lunch and something else we're going to do. I'll have to wait to see. I don't have details on that yet. That's coming. So FYI, I wanted to tell you about that. So let me come back over here. So that was the first thing. So I hope you consider getting involved, not just in this event, but in any local event. I talked about Meetup before. As a matter of fact, today's Monday. We have our Meetup for GDG Fresno this week. We'll be talking about wearables, what's going on in the wearable space, more related to also developing apps for the wearable market, like my watch. I love my watch. Absolutely. I have Google Glass too, but I have to say that for a practical purpose, I've definitely noticed the watch is more realistic in the day to day. But anyway, wearables, that's the topic this week. So now to kind of switch gears a little bit. So that's kind of here's what's happening, this coming at you, because this event will happen after our class ends. So I want you to know, this is something I think you should get involved in, because I know for me, the reason I do this stuff is to be closer to what's happening out in the industry. So now let's go ahead and switch topics and go to look at, ooh, not that topic, but this one, which is looking at the end of semester. So tonight, you have the final bootstrap. You have to decide and build, optimizing images. There's so much more to do here, but at least I give you an intro to it. And then Thursday night, you can see these topics. No, the Chrome Dev Summit, really important content. I watch most of it, so this you get to pick and choose which content you want to talk about. Building a favicon. That's cool. Like if you notice up in my browser, right? So all these little icons, that's a favicon. So building them is kind of fun. So and then the final week, next week, right? So as we end this week and then we move in the next, this workflows with Grunt.js is just an intro to workflow. There's many different ways to do workflow, and right now the way you're going to do website development isn't with a product that helps you with workflow. But I will tell you at some point, especially if you continue on with us, and then as you get into the industry, you're going to see many ways to do workflow. And really what that means is you create, you modify your HTML, CSS, and your JavaScript, and then there's a software process that takes that code and prepares it for the web. And this is really good to know. And then NPM, Node Package Manager, such an important topic. So Node is really pervasive for allowing you to add things into your websites, and now as a development platform as well. Something I will talk about in just a minute. And then I give you another opportunity to do some work related to the project, which by the way this is as well, because you'll see the theme as we move out of the bootstrap and into the final weeks, as we're still focusing some of your actual work on the project itself. And then, so in that week, next week, on the 9th, right, you'll have the end of semester, which will just be a lecture from me, which I may, if I can find time, I'm going to review this and see if I feel like this content needs to be updated. But then the following night, and this is the really big deal because this ends the class, is Project Zero. So what happens, it's due on the 10th. I will wake up the morning of the 11th, finish grading, and then post grades sometime that day. So it's really important that you nail this as far as timeline goes. And the other thing I've talked about is the ability to ask the what if questions about your grade. So how much does this impact your grade? And I haven't talked about late work in this class, but do know that if you go back and do some work from the past, I do discount it 25%, but I do give you points for it. So keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the way the end of this goes, and then I hope many of you will be moving on to the 85 class for the next 9 weeks of this semester. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say, and I have it in my schedule here, is I noticed as I was grading your work last week, some of you, when you set up your GitHub IO, missed a key point, or something else happened. I'm not sure what, but I just want to just let you know. So this is my student account. And when I set up my repo that I want to be my hosted website for this class, for Project Zero, or for in the future, anytime you want to use this one URL to host websites on GitHub, which is a really nice feature, you have to make sure, and this is really key. So here's my username, Rio FCC student. So when I created that repository, the first part of that has to match that username, and then .githubio.com. Okay, sorry, .io. So that's a really important thing, because if you don't do this, you can't see this as a web page, right? So if you don't, and I'm just going to grab the URL real quick. I'll just go into it to see it. So, and this is really nothing. But the idea is, if you can't type in that URL, and I cover this as a duplication of content for you, but if you can't go to that, right, and it renders as a page, that means something and most likely it's either that you didn't fully qualify the URL or you didn't have the username, because I know some of you put like 2 or 3 or something else in there, and that will not render as a web page. Okay, so that's an important part. Now, having said all that, good to know needs to be done. There is a way that you can use this site, which is get raw git. And you can paste in your folder directories, your branch, in this case branches. We're not using branches, we're only using your master branch, but you can paste that in here and Git, so to speak, and I don't mean as in GIT, but GET, a URL that does render as a web page. But I will tell you, if I see that in your submissions for Project Zero, I will take off a few points, because the idea was that you knew how to set up your repo correctly so that it renders as a web page. And because you all did a template last week, and some of you did call it template, which I think is a good idea, right? So then that renders as that template directory or that site, so that you will always have that. And it's good to understand how to look at subdirectories this way. It's fairly simple. Some of you named it, I noticed, capital T, which is okay. So just FYI. Okay, so I want to make sure we're clear about if that, because that may come up as an issue when you're trying to actually provide the URL, which I believe tonight is the night you'll have to do that. Okay, all right, so those are the two things I wanted to talk about. Now, the other thing before I move on to looking forward is it's really important that you get help this week. I've had at least one student contact me, and we're going to meet up today on campus. So I am not normally around on Friday, so let's just go look real quick. So since we're talking about it, right? So my schedule, if you come into syllabus, let's hope it's in here. It was the last time I looked, right? It's actually integrated. I actually have an iframe of this in here. Okay, so you can see here, today is my schedule. And here's the thing, I have an office hour like today and again tomorrow. And then tomorrow I go to class and then have an office hour. So you're welcome to come any of this time. Right now, the way my classes are held, students come into work, so you could just come in to get help if you needed it. So when you look at my schedule, just know that that's true. And then on Friday, there's a virtual office hour. So if you want to meet with me, I need a heads up at least sometime on Thursday to see if I can rearrange my Friday schedule, because I'm virtual, which means I still grade, I still do all the work I'm doing, but I'm not on campus necessarily. But again, if you want to meet with me, I need to hear from you by Thursday, okay? Because this is the week, right? Because we have the rest of this week and then next week, and that's it. Okay, so let me bring you back here. Okay, so get help when you need it. Reach out. The chat's still there. I notice it hasn't been really active, which is a little surprising to me, but that's fine too. Because if you're doing well, which actually I really look to see if overall we're doing well by looking at the grades, overall we're doing pretty well. So that's awesome. So looking forward, so hopefully, again, some of you are going into 85, and then I just want you to know that in the fall 2017 semester, I will have JavaScript CIT93 online. So that will happen if you're interested. If you've gone through 85, it's a logical next step for you to take 93, because actually this class 95, 85, 93 actually gives you the certificate. So that's definitely a path I'd recommend if you've continued on. So think about taking my online JavaScript. There's definitely resources I have lined up for that. As you sign up, you'll hear from me over the summer, because I'll have developed most of that class content over the summer. Then, in the following semester, which I know seems like forever from now, but I at least want to put it in your noggin, is that it's a logical next step after you take CIT 93 is to take my CIT 94. Now that is a class that's going to be offered face to face, because it's the first time I've taught it, and it's going to be it'll be covered server side, but in this case it's going to cover the flavor of Node.js, which is basically it's JavaScript on the server. So if you take 93 with me, which is JavaScript it's a logical step to take 94 in this case because it's basically taking the idea of what you're learning in JavaScript and extending it into the server side. And right now, there couldn't be anything more popular. Well, there could be, but Node.js is way popular in development and creating sites and doing Node Package Manager as I was looking over the content. So just knowing Node is a really great thing to put on any resume and for that experience. So I just want to put that in your noggin as that 93 next semester. Okay, sorry, 93, yep, next JavaScript, and that's client side scripting on the web, and then 94 the semester after Node in the classroom. So think about that. Anyway, hope to see some of you either this week or next if the need arises. Otherwise, just really fun to meet folks come in. I had somebody else come in last week that I had met, and it was really wonderful to see that. So it's fun to meet you, but I also know the benefit of this class is that you don't have to come in. So if that's not a need you have, if you just happen to be around, you want to say hi, please do so. I think that's all for me. A little longer than normal, but I wanted to give you that end of the semester stuff and wish you all happy trails and have a great end of the semester. Peace out.